Next thing I want to get into is the trumpets. So here's the big section. They don't come in until the big section. There's different samples going on here. That one's a high trumpet. It's mixed down quite a bit compared to this one, which is a little bit louder. It's not in the score. I put this high trumpet in there because I thought it made the sound stronger. I thought it made it sound a little bit more like the original sound. Even if there isn't a trumpet playing that high in the original, I thought it helped it sound more like the original, if that makes sense. There's sometimes when you're doing these mock-ups, there's things that you might do that kind of don't make sense, but you're doing them because they sound right. And there's a lot of things that fall into that category. So while I'm here talking about different sample libraries for different trumpets, another thing I want to show is how I'm handling reverb. One of the main libraries I'm using is Spitfire's BBC Symphony Orchestra, which a lot of people describe it as a very wet library. The samples are recorded in a big room that has a lot of natural room reverb. It's the Air Lyndhurst recording studio. The room has a very lush sound to it. So like... So you can hear how much natural reverb there is on that sample. Now, I haven't added any reverb to it. On the BBC instruments, I pretty much always have the built-in reverb all the way down, because there's so much natural room reverb already baked into the recordings of each of these samples. Now, if I compare that to... If I click on the east-west trumpet here, I've got a send happening here, and that's where I'm adding reverb to this east-west Hollywood Orchestra trumpet, because the Hollywood Orchestra's instruments from east-west, they're much drier. They're recorded in a smaller room with a closer mic, probably. If I just turn off this reverb that I've got, see, that dies off pretty quickly. There's not much reverb happening there. So I add in reverb to kind of try to match the Hollywood Orchestra with the BBC. It's not technically necessary. It's all about finding the right blend. And if you have one sample that has a lot of reverb to it, and another sample that's very dry, they can clash with each other, but it all depends on how you mix them. Like if you have them at the same level, they're probably going to clash. But if you have the dry one lower, and you're mainly hearing the one with the natural reverb, but you've got the dry one just in there a little bit to add texture to this one, then they're probably fine. You can do it the other way around too, and have the dry one up front and center, and have this one with the reverb further back, and that gives you more of a far off light reverb, or like almost like an echo type thing, where it's like the instrument's playing next to you, but somewhere clear in the back of the room the sound is also bouncing back to you from a long ways away. It gives that kind of effect. But when I am mixing and layering these different samples, I'm trying to make them sound like they are different instruments in the same section of the orchestra. That's kind of the way that I approach it. I do like to try to match the room, put them in the same room, is what people say. And so that's what I'm doing here with the reverb. Now, when you first pull up an instrument like the trumpet here in Opus or in Play, whichever engine you're using, if you're using Play or Opus, they both have this where they have a default reverb, and I have turned it off. So by default, this trumpet would come with this Southern California Hall for brass, with this much pre-delay, this much width, this much volume, all of this stuff. I always turn those off for every East-West Hollywood Orchestra instrument that I load up here, because look how many instruments I have on here, man. I mean, if all of them were individually utilizing this Spaces reverb, that eats up a lot of processor power. That processor is going to get overwhelmed if every single track you have has its own dedicated reverb, when it really doesn't hurt the sound of anything if you just have those tracks share a reverb by doing a send like that.